And I'm going to be talking to Bill Townsend. He is the owner of Electric City Comics here in the Capital District. It's over in Schenectady. Um, so, as you've probably, if you've been watching, you've seen that I've been talking to the local comic book stores to see how they've been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic that has basically shut down the comic book distribution. At least until the end of this month. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in Bill, and we're going to talk. Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay.
So before, go ahead.
Um, the situation with comic books is changing almost hourly. And you said that comic books aren't going to be coming out to the end of the month. Well, no, they're coming out next Wednesday.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, everybody has it. The schedule seems to be changing constantly. So
Yeah,
I don't know. It's just
a couple hours ago, I got a little shock. I was asking Diamond, it's like, okay, so we got the last week the comics came in, March 22nd. There was a previews there. And like, well, this previews is junk now, obviously, because all the dates in it are lies. It's like, can I return this? Can I get my money back? And the answer to that is no, because you still have to turn in that order form and you got to turn it in. You have a week to do it. Good luck.
So before we get into that, just how did you get into comic books? And tell us a little bit about your store. You guys are the oldest store in the Capital District. Is that correct?
That is correct. Although it's simply a matter of months. I think that Earthworld was founded like 2 months after us under its original
Okay.
owners. So yeah, but yes, we are the oldest surviving.
So how did you get into comic books? Do you remember the book that hooked you, or are there any particular creators that you followed or now follow?
Well, you got to remember, I'm 60 years old, so I got into comic books back when I was like 6, 7, and 8 years old, and this was back in the Silver Age. And my memory is just that I would pick up the occasional comic book, and then what happened? I think in second grade, I had my tonsils taken out, and my dad wanted to bring me home some comics, but he had no idea what I was reading, so he brought back one of everything. And I previously had mainly been into Superman comics because, the Mort Weinsinger run, like, oh, Superman's a caveman in this issue. All right, let's see him ride a dinosaur. That's the sort of thing I was into. But he had a bunch of Marvels in there, and I distinctly remember he had Captain America. For some reason, this particular drugstore had more than one issue, so they didn't take them down every month. Captain America 113 and 114. 113 was a Jim Steranko issue, very moody and kind of Captain America noir, and the second one was, I think, by either John Romita or John Buscema, and it was more of a straight up superhero thing. And it was like two completely different comic books. And I looked at this stuff and I go, what is this? This isn't Superman on his dinosaur. This is just unspeakably weird. And that's what got me hooked, I think.
Okay. So let's go back to beginning of March, is everything was before everything really hit the fan. Can you walk us through kind of what you as a shop owner experienced once you learned that Diamond was suspending their distribution?
Well, I already knew that things were getting pretty serious because my other interest is I've been into chess for years, and there was a big chess tournament that was due to be held up in Saratoga, the New York State Scholastic Chess Championship, and this is a big deal. We were expecting something like 1,500 people, and just a couple days before we were getting ready to set up, they canceled it. And it's mainly because how serious things were down in New York City. And once I saw that, I go, things are getting serious, and we have only begun to see how serious they will get. And the thing is that we basically we're trying to follow some of the CDC guidelines in terms of disinfecting things like the door handles and the counter and the cash register. But things really hadn't gotten to the serious point yet by the time the Pause Act came into effect, and we essentially closed after, I think it was Sunday, March 22nd.
Okay.
But I mean, we weren't wearing masks at that time. But now it seems like we're going to be opening up again for new books on May 20th, but only to do curbside service. We can't, our area is not going to be, is going to still be on lockdown.
Right.
I suppose I've heard that we have cleared 6 of the 7 hurdles to open up again. We haven't had our numbers go down for 2 weeks solid, for 14 days solid. And so therefore we can't start the unlockdown procedure. So we can only do curbside service. We can't let anybody into the store.
So, so you've been doing the curbside service, but have you seen people, still coming by and wanting the, even though it's not new product, have you still been moving product, or has it kind of hurt your business?
I guess I must have not been understood, because we have been closed since.
Okay, sorry.
Since March 22nd. So business has been at an absolute standstill.
Okay, that was my fault.
Yeah. We are going to be opening up again beginning May 20th with the new books we're getting in. And it's my understanding that there's, for instance, going to be no new Marvel books in that bunch, and that Marvel books are going to be only coming out every other week or something like that. So it's things are still kind of unclear, but Diamond seems definite that we are going to be getting new books beginning May 20th.
So do you see what happened with Diamond as they're basically the only distributor? Do you see anything changing with the comic book distribution process, or do you see another possible company coming in and giving them competition? I know it was tried before and went down in flames, but do you think that anything will come out of this, since once Diamond said that they were not shipping, everything just kind of shut down?
Everything kind of ground to a halt. Well, I mean, I've been in the business long enough that I remember the distribution crash of 1995. And I don't know how many of your listeners know about it, but in 1995, Marvel bought Heroes World Distribution. At the time, there were something like 12 different regional distributors. And for instance, we were an account of Comics Unlimited Comics that was out of Staten Island. And when Marvel bought Heroes World, everyone goes, uh-oh, this could be bad. And sure enough, a few months later, Marvel announced that Heroes World was going to be the exclusive distributor for Marvel Comics. And over the next 2 years, the comic distribution system shook itself to pieces. And at the end of that, instead of 12 distributors, there was only one. And spoiler alert, it wasn't Heroes World. Marvel just ground Heroes World into dust. Heroes World was just a tiny distributor. They couldn't distribute, essentially was a third of the published comics. And so that business there makes me really leery of anybody else trying to distribute comics, because Diamond essentially is the limb that we are all sitting on. And if someone saws off that limb, we're all going to fall. It's not funny. It's not funny at all. Again, I don't know how much your listeners know about DC Comics tried to get alternative distribution. DC announced a few weeks ago that, oh, we found a new way to distribute comics. And it was through, I think, two big subscription services, one on the West Coast, one on the East Coast. And for me, this was pretty bad news because, one, I mean, I was still locked down thanks to the Pause Act. So it doesn't matter if you can get me new comics, I can't sell them. And also it's like, okay, so you're distributing DC comic books, and also not many DC comic books. The first week was like 5 books. It basically, it's like we can't survive on just this. And can Diamond survive without DC Comics? I mean, like I say, Diamond is the only limb we're sitting on. If that gets sawed off, it's bad news. We don't want to destabilize Diamond. Well, as it turns out, Diamond was going to be carrying all these books, and pretty much everyone decided that, yeah, we don't want to mess with this new distribution service. We'll stick with Diamond no matter what happens. I mean, for my part, I wasn't really surprised that Diamond stopped distributing because their main warehouse is in New York State, in Plattsburgh. Mm-hmm. And if I, as a comic store, am not an essential business, well, them as comic distributors aren't an essential business either. So I wasn't surprised to see that they shut down.
So how do you see things like conventions or, and stuff like that changing? I recently did a show about New York Con, which probably is not going to happen. And if it does, it'll probably be some virtual thing. How do you think that the different conventions will be impacted? I mean, San Diego closed. I believe MegaCon is closed.
Well, I mean, I follow a lot of artists on Twitter, and the ones that were actually depending on income from conventions and meeting people and selling artwork, they got punched in the face. That's the only way to put it. The fact that almost any big gathering of people seems like a really bad idea at this point. I mean, for instance, I mentioned that I'm involved with chess. A big chess tournament with 1,500 kids, when is something like that going to be able to happen again? Probably not for a couple of years until they have a vaccine or something. So are they going to try to run them via Zoom? But I mean, you can't have 1,000 people on one Zoom call. And it's the same thing for conventions. You can maybe have like an audience with one creator and people can follow on Twitter or something like that. But having an entire convention, there's a lot of people adapting, like having like maybe like a talk with 2 or 3 creators. Something I saw, I don't play Animal Crossing. It looks like a very cute game, but there is a talk show on Animal Crossing, and they just started a couple of weeks ago, and already they're picking up some kind of A-list looking guests, where basically their avatars are sitting on a little pretend couch talking to the host, who's a guy in Australia. Like this week's is going to have Elijah Wood, and Greg Grunberg, and there was a third person that was like, wow. It's probably things like that are going to substitute for conventions, but they're not going to be nearly the same. And all of the financial structures around conventions, the big convention halls, all the people they have to hire, all of the hotel rooms they're going to fill, that looks to be a thing of the past, at least for the next year and a half or so. Can these venues survive that long without that kind of income? It's unclear.
So what do you see? Do you see any changes for your business going forward? I know you're not letting people in the store. You're going to be doing curbside. Any other changes or any other challenges that you are anticipating?
Well, in preparing to open up, I gave a friend of mine a call, and he is actually a former comics pro. His name's Tom Vincent. He used to be an artist and a colorist for Marvel. He colored Thanos Quest. He used to color the Silver Surfer. And he runs a wine and liquor store now. So he's been open all the while. And I wanted to call him up and see how he was handling everything. Um, and he reminded me that before he got involved in comics, he was a nurse. So he's very familiar with sterile procedures and how to keep things germ free. Um, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. You got to go through a lot of disinfectant. You got to go through a lot of masks. You got to go through a lot of gloves. And the thing is that a liquor store isn't like a comic store. You don't really browse in a liquor store. You pretty much know what you want, or the guy at the front at the counter can say, "Oh, you want this Merlot," or "Oh, you want this kind of gin." But in a comic store, people got to pick things up and look at them because comic books is a looking medium.
Right.
And I've got a store full of things that are meant for people to browse through them, but browsing doesn't look like it's going to be a thing anytime soon. So this is going to be a challenge. I mean, I'm going to need to figure out some sort of way to let people know what I have and let them know they can call me up and order it. I'm not really sure how the others are handling it. I mean, as far as I know, the only comic store open in the Capital District currently is Earthworld, and they're just doing limited curbside service hours.
Well, I think Aqualonia is also open to curbside also.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I haven't.
And so is Zombie Planet. He's doing curbside too.
Okay. Okay.
Because maybe that's why I misunderstood you earlier when you said that you were closed, because the other other retailers were doing what they could to remain open. So that was, again, that's probably my fault.
Well, I mean, I had an appreciation of how serious this was, and like I say, I'm 60 years old. I've got diabetes, so I have an underlying condition. Getting the coronavirus would not be good for me.
Right.
So I need to be careful. And by the same token, I don't want to give it to anybody else. So we took it very seriously. We decided it would be best for us to close rather than to do the curbside service and try to do mail order, simply because it would involve lots of contact with people through cars and people at post offices and whatnot. Also, the fact that there were no new comics meant that we didn't have that much to sell. And I would imagine that for both Aqualonia and Earthworld, after the initial rush of selling that last week of comics that came in the week of March 18th, they kind of were running short of things to sell.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm not sure. I've been talking with them throughout since this all began. So I haven't really had a chance to do any follow-ups with them. But so final question. What do you suggest that if people can get their hands on until the new comic books come out, even or when the new comics when the new comics come out, what would you recommend for people to try out?
Well, this entire thing might change the way people read comic books. I mean, already things are starting to tilt more away from the monthly floppies into trade paperbacks. So reading trade paperbacks might become even more of a thing than it is already. I mean, if you're going to, however slight it is, risk your health to go out to a store, you want to get something that's going to last you for a while. It's like when people shop at the grocery store, they're filling up their carts. They're not getting one or two items and then going home and coming back 2 days later. So it might simply be a case of trade paperbacks, and collections and large graphic novels are going to be more popular than they were before.
Do you think digital will gain some ground?
I think that is definitely possible. I think that it's definitely possible because, like anything, getting comics is a habit. And once people break that habit, for some people, it's hard to start up again. I mean, we are going to try to supply people with the books they want. I mean, we miss our customers. We miss the daily interactions and seeing people every week and talking comics with people. And I want that to happen again. I want to be able to sell people books that make them happy. And I miss that. I miss that a lot. So hopefully, I mean, when things start up this Wednesday, we'll be able to fulfill the demand again.
Okay. Well, and am I correct to saying that? Well, Free Comic Book Day was obviously not the first Saturday in this month, but
Nope.
has that been pushed back to November or something like that? Am I correct, or is this still up in the air?
From what I understand, the person that's going to determine when Free Comic Book Day is Diamond. It's pretty much Diamond canceled it. We haven't gotten any of the books that we were supposed to get. So they're talking about sometime in the fall is all I've heard.
Okay.
No particular date. I mean, they could pick Halloween, or the Saturday of Halloween,
Mm-hmm.
but they haven't really come to an exact date yet. Well, also, our anniversary sale was supposed to happen the first Saturday in April, and so that obviously is pushed back, and we may not have one this year simply because the idea of having an event that has lots of people come into the store may not be something that we want to do for the next few months.
Yeah, understandable. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to talk with me, and wish you the best when you guys do reopen, and hope you stay healthy and safe.
Well, thank you much, and you too, and to all your listeners as well. Be careful and stay safe, and we'll all see each other on the other side of this.
And if you ever have any, I know you had a couple events or like giveaways that I was helping, I would promote. But if you have anything that you would like to promote, then you just let me know, and I'd be glad to do that for you.
I appreciate that, Chad.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, have a good evening.
Have a good evening yourself. Thank you.
All right. Bye.